Art Tools for Change, Unused Value of Art in Education. As part of the Center for Plausible Economies, founded by Catherine Bohm and Kuba Schroeder in 2018, the Associación de Arte Útil was invited to think about how the association functions within our economic system. The starting point was a feeling of frustration. Everyone is exposed to economic forces, but nobody seems in control. The Associación de Arte Útil is a nomad and informal membership organization founded by Tania Bruguera to promote the idea of usership in art. Its activities are organized in collaboration with art institutions and a plethora of independent spaces, not-for-profit organizations, and informal groups of citizens who are keen to use the resources that the Associación de Arte Útil provides. Mapping artistic economy seems a good way of explaining what and how have been making things happen since 2015, despite not being officially part of any form of legal system anywhere and operating mostly through an online archive. The main references for the workshop were Catherine Gibson's The Economy as an Iceberg and Gregory Cholet's concept of dark matter. Both approaches suggest to look into either under the waterline or at the dark matter of the art world as essential elements for the survival of the mainstream art economy. If one suggests to look underneath the water, the other suggests to look up to the sky. However, both require a movement towards something that is not before us. Arte Útil case studies are also in movement between disciplines. They travel and transform themselves according to usership. What happens when art leaves its own territory, when it moves into situations of collaboration in other territories, when it migrates south socially and epistemically speaking? All too often we tend to devote attention to what art does when it gets to whatever new territory it invests, rather than thinking about what happens to the place art left behind. But it is no less important to attend to the fate of art's place of departure than to its point of arrival. Does it not open a kind of invisible void through its often conspicuous absence, taught in culture, the way nature abhors a vacuum? This is the operation of extraterritorial reciprocity, a perhaps excessively multisyllabic way of describing how, in leaving its own territory for another, in becoming a one-to-one scale practice, art vacates, in a gesture of reciprocity, a space for other social practices to use. The Associación de Arte Útil mapping tool is a table setting. It describes and activates possibilities of functioning, value chains, connections, and above all, relationships between our growing network of members. But why a table setting? We thought about the uncountable conversations we had at coffee places and restaurants, how these places became our offices and studios, and how they could be part of that iceberg, that dark matter. The tablecloth represents the association, and cups, small plates, bottles, teapots, cutlery, roast coasters, coffee, tea, milk, and sugar are all the elements that compose who we are and what we do. That moment of having a cup of coffee or tea, orchestrated by a series of relationships represented by the lines, which connect all the objects on the table and organize the movements. Arte Útil suggests an operational mode that begins implementation before all the details of a plan have been settled. Following up to the idea of thriving to anticipating the future or working for the not yet, the mapping tool was included to support a curriculum delivered at the International Master Artist Educator at the University of the Arts in Arnhem, devoted to mapping Arte Útil in the Netherlands. The mapping tool was installed at the Werksalon, an entire floor of the Abbemuseum in Eindhoven, devoted to featuring the museum constituency's work. The assignment consisted of using the mapping tool, so repurposing it, either to map the economy of a particular case study included in the Arte Útil archive or students' own projects in development. The aim of the exercise was to suggest alternative ways to see what is hidden, but it's part of their own work, project, and practice. Students focused on the different kind of economies which affect their condition of students, as well as young artist educators, and resources they already use, which are far from the traditional idea we have of the economy, which is basically linked to money. As a result, students repurpose the mapping tool not to map something that already exists, but to map the possible relationship of the group in order to understand its strength to apply in the future. Arte Útil case studies use different tactics and approaches to become propositions for the future. They seem to be all re-establishing use value within the art. Several case studies operate at the intersection of art education and economy, such as Nuria Güell and Levi Horta's Degenerate Political Art Ethical Protocol. The artists, after creating an anonymous corporation, Horta and Güell Contemporary Art SA, in a tax haven, Panama, they donated the management of their company and their bank account with all its benefits to a group of activists who are developing an autonomous society project on the sidelines of the capitalist dynamics. This company allows its recipients to evade the regulations imposed by the states, by the European Central Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, challenging the financial system monopoly and thus facilitating a free effectiveness for an autonomous economy development. The funding of the company is therefore a tool for establishing a more autonomous financial system using the contradictory mechanism of financial capitalism as tools in the struggle against the very system those tools were designed to support. According to the Spanish tax agency, 74% of tax fraud occurs among political figures, resulting in a loss of 44 billion euro from the state's coffer, which, as it happens, is almost as much as the current shortfall in Spain's public social expenditure where compared with the EU 15 average of 66 billion euro. These are funds Spain could have spent on health, education, childcare, services for dependent persons, public transports, and so on. Over the course of my research around the Arte Útil archive, I have identified different approaches to use value. One of them suggests subversion, to destroy and tear down everything completely in order to create something new, which can be linked to the emerging of the undercommons as theorized by Stefano Arnhem and Fred Moten. The undercommons is not the commons. It is a place of performativity, ensemble, conspiracy, and improvisation with the form of singular and collective life itself. The Parasite School, initiated by Felipe Castelblanco, is another project part of the Arte Útil archive. It explores education as artistic material and the university as a contested political arena. By operating from the inside the university in a parasitical way, the Parasite School appropriates the university's resources such as its faculty, classrooms, labs, equipment, researchers, and so on, in order to create alternative opportunities for minorities, undocumented migrants, and artists facing migration issues to attend college and access higher education in the United States and Europe. Meanwhile, the school itself serves as a platform for artists, educators, and researchers to investigate forms of experimental pedagogy, participation, and social interventions in the public sphere as a form of artistic practice and social action. Castelblanco initiated several art courses in secrecy at the universities where he was invited as a guest or lecturer, such as the Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, the Royal Academy Schools in London, or art spaces like the Akademie der Kunst der Welt in Cologne. He enabled marginalized students to access education using his status as artist and teacher. Another case study worth mentioning is Stride Depth's The Rolling Jubilee. StrideDebt is a decentralized network of debt resistors, including activists, artists, and organizers who since 2012 resist the growing debt system in the United States. In an act of mutual support, people donate to the organization in order to abolish other people's debt. Taking advantage of the deregulation of the finance industry and the ability to legally purchase charged-off debt, StrideDebt is able to buy individuals' debt at random for pennies on the dollar and abolish it. The Rolling Jubilee cancels the debt immediately, intervening for the benefit of the 99% and highlighting the harmful effect of our predatory debt system. They stress on the fact that debt is a form of domination. It's very ideological. If you are in debt, it's your fault, probably you did something wrong. There is a lot of shame around that. They stay away from the idea of forgiveness of debt. People shouldn't be ashamed or sorry for wanting an education or healthcare or a place to live. In this context of crisis and debt, there is an opportunity to reframe the way we understand our economy. There is a lot of potential for building power. Before the COVID-19 crisis forced us to adapt to our lives to a new normal, I've been looking at case studies in Liverpool in order to plan a constituency-led curriculum as a real tool for change within the institution, using Arte Útil and its principles. During an interview for The Independent published on 17th of May 2019, Erica Rushton, who is the chair Baltic Creative, said that Liverpool is a city that has got its confidence back. Over a 30-year period, Liverpool was told that its salvation would be an inward investor or a grant from the government. The unspoken message was, "You are not capable of this. We are going to have to do it for you." We have work to say that is not true. We are the economy. It's not something that is done to us. In Liverpool, case studies such as Home Baked in Anfield and Granbyford Street are great examples of how art was used as an alibi to enable a response to a certain kind of crisis, reimagining the future of entire neighborhoods and possibly suggesting a new reconfiguration for a city. These projects are not pointing out something, but they imagine how our world could be. They don't suggest a change, they are the change, because it's art on a one-to-one scale. Through one-to-one scale initiatives make use of representation in any number of ways, they are not themselves representations of anything. One-to-one practices are both what they are and proposition of what they are. I have been analyzing the relationship between writing a curriculum involving the local practitioners whose practices are not yet included into the Arte Útil archive, including visits to their locations, interviews, and use of their projects. I spoke to one of the initiators of Kitty Laundrette, Grace Harrison. Kitty Laundrette is a community laundrette and social space in the Everton-Anfield area of Liverpool, run by local residents, which offers affordable ecological laundry services. It is also a space for people to gather, talk, and learn. It is organized as a social enterprise, which means all the money go back into their community. The project is named after Kitty Wilkinson, an Irish immigrant to Liverpool who is credited as the pioneer of the wash house movement in the UK. Kitty lived in the only home with a boiler during a cholera outbreak in 1832. She invited her neighbors to wash their clothes and bedding in her house, saving many lives. 10 years later, with the help of public funds, her efforts resulted in the opening of the first combined wash house and public bath in the UK. In the Toxteth area of the city of Liverpool for more than a decade, Squash has been working as a creative food enterprise operating as a community business which functions in collaboration with cooks, horticulturists, artists, filmmakers, performers, and architects. There, I met Claire Owens, who showed me around. Squash consists of a small shop, a restaurant serving local and organic food, and a space for workshop, aiming for sustainability over profit. They have a 100-year street project which is transforming the street into a sort of shared orchard with edible plants. Ironically, Claire explained that in the same area there is one of the biggest Tesco supermarket of the country, which is almost closing because people cannot really afford to go shopping there. A project like Squash aims to give more agency and joy to the people living in the area and beyond. It unlocks their potential because it is a real example that change is possible. To conclude, according to Arte Útil principles, I have been using my position as curator, archivist, and educator to infiltrate different institutions in different formats according to the need. The struggle I have now is about what one can and cannot do in a formal education environment. Is it possible to teach a radical approach that seeks to reorganize the existing configuration of the system with the system itself? To transform a system, we have to stop it from working. When you stop the machine from working, you have damaged the machine. Plumbers might need to become vandals, or we might have to pass as plumbers, for fixing the leaks, to become vandals, to make the leak bigger. I never felt so free to express myself. You gave me wings, and I am now boosted to face every problem in my school. I also hope our paths will cross again, because it was an experience I will never forget. I am now ready to change society in my own way. This was a message we received from our students last year, as a reminder that we might be on the right path.